Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. This is L3's Blues Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Saturday, September 30th, 2017. Man, this year has flown by so quick. Good grief, man. Hopefully everyone's achieving their goals. People are still alive. Exciting things are happening. The Catalonia vote should be tomorrow, Sunday, and of course the Kurdistan referendum is interesting as well. So there's a lot of, maybe some pros and cons. I support secession, don't get me wrong, even though I do praise the Catalonians to have their independence, so was the Kurds. But all like I always say, keep it organic and real. Keep it authentic. Be sovereign nations, not franchise territories. When I say by franchise territories, Club of Rome. See, right now, I know it looks like the EU is a little bit infuriated with going on with Catalonia, trying to say, oh, we're not going to get involved. They're going to try to weasel their way in if Catalonia does seek independence. That's why to my brothers out there, keep it real and stay vigilant if successful. Yes, expect possible potential repercussions from the Spanish government. Same thing with the Kurds and Kurdistan. The brothers and sisters out there need to be vigilant as well. So this is always the thing. Like if one tyrant falls, no one will rise. You have to keep your government on their toes. Don't take anything for granted. Don't just sit there and be complacent. After this referendum gets through, you have a lot of work to do. So I hope to the brothers and sisters in those areas the best and make it to benefit the people, not the government or potential pranksters, which are the banksters and New World Order parasites. And of course, you hear about what's going on with Puerto Rico, the horrific aftermath from Maria. And of course, they're all pointing fingers at each other. Look, the blame game doesn't work. I've seen this happen so many times. Preparation to the best of your abilities is always have to be essential. Off the grid living has to be exercised. Not saying it's perfect. It's going to be rough. There's rough areas over there for our fellow brothers and sisters. Of course, in the Virgin Islands as well. In all parts of the world. Preparation is key. Like I said, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Even myself, I have to practice that as well. And work as a team, a community. Not play survival of the fittest and go everyone but me. That will bite you in the rear when least expect it. That's one thing I always despise. A bunch of marauders think the world should revolve around them. That don't fly in these times, turbulent times. Can we say Kali Yuga? Age of Coral? Yeah, possibly. It is coming around, or you say tribulation. Doesn't matter what your creed is, but it's an exciting, interesting time to be alive. Exciting as well. And scary. Across the board, but you can't let your fears conquer you. You gotta conquer it. Yeah, a little Bruno Mars is playing in the background. Don't worry, I'm not licensed or anything like that. Plus, I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1 along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, within the Yacht Club, southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Cozy little facility. Give them a little love if you're in Fort Lauderdale. Mom and pop places, man. I support them. So it's the way it's got to be. Cool little, historical area. Even if you study the Seminole Wars in Florida, Fort Lauderdale was a battlefield during that horrific time. Yes, of course, many folks are still talking about the protests and this and that. in the NFL. Yeah, it's a distraction. Business. Talked about that. I post some of my stuff on my Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus pages. I should do it to my other social media sites as well. But people get the picture. Well, alright. Well, speaking of Kremlins and Wall Street and whoever, who actually runs the White House? And it's a real good article written by Tony Cartalucci from New Eastern Outlook. And I always post the stuff here on my Spreaker page and all that, so I try to go across the board. Alright, well, it came out today to be exact. It says here, Wall Street versus Kremlin, who really runs White House? By blaming Russia for America's most apparent problems and most unforgiving policies, Wall Street is given another 4 to 8 year free pass. Hooray! Celebrate, celebrate, down to financial tyranny. Exactly. Perhaps the only one thing more incredible than quickly expanding conspiracy theories regarding the Kremlin's influence over the White House is who is selling them and who is buying them. Organizations popping up overnight with advisory boards lined with neoconservatives who came to the prominence during the administration of former U.S. President George Bush and who became notorious for selling the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq based on intentional fabrications, now find themselves building an audience of unlikely political allies, left-leaning liberals. Who is selling this? The so-called Alliance for Security and Democracy recently accused Russia of manipulating news to target U.S.-based National Football League (NFL). It claims in its mission in a statement that in 2016 American democracy became under unprecedented attack. Where it says democracy in our U.S. Constitution? Yeah, right. The government of the Russian Federation attempted to weaken the pillars of a democracy and undermine faith and confidence in our society's most fundamental right, the ability to choose our own leaders. Or really, so if Israel gets saved, exceptional. They can do it, but they can't. Exactly, exceptional. I'm not buying it one bit, of course. We'll continue on here. The organization's disinformation dashboard even includes a disclaimer admitting nothing about the information it presents constitutes evidence. Ambiguous terms like Russia-aligned are not qualified. Instead, it claims emphasis added. Content is not necessarily produced or created by Russian government operatives, although that is sometimes the case. Instead, the network often opportunistically amplifies content created by third parties not directly linked to Russia. Common themes for amplification include content attacking the U.S. and Europe, conspiracy theories and disinformation. Russian influence operations also frequently promote extremism and divisive politics in Western countries. Just because the Russian-aligned network monitor here tweets something, that doesn't mean anyone who tweets the same content isn't aligned with Russia. An organization that accused Russia, in particular President Vladimir Putin, for undermining U.S. elections, inferring Russia's responsibility for Hillary Clinton's defeat, counts amongst its advisory council Michael Chertoff. You know what Chertoff means? Son of the devil in Russian. A Bush-era neoconservative who served as President Bush's Secretary of Homeland Security. Everyone's a fascist, everyone's a fraud, everyone's a phony, everyone but you, everyone but you. That's a Fenwick song, by the way, everyone but you. There is also David Kramer, who served in the U.S. Department under President Bush, served as a president of the neoconservative chair, State Department Front Freedom House. And currently serves as a member of the Advisory Council for George W. Bush's Presidential Center Human Freedom Project. Freedom for me, but tyranny for you, right? This is like a Comedy Central. I'm sorry, my friend. This is hilarious. William Crystal, considered by many as those of the chief architects, or at least leading salesman of the 2003 Iraq War, also chairs the Alliance for Secure Democracy Advisory Board. He was a signatory of the Neoconservative Project for the New American Century, PNAC Boy, and Pro-War Foreign Initiative. He served the administrations of U.S. President Ronald Reagan and Jorge Bush Sr., a new world order. Michael Morale, who recently declared interest in killing Russians and Iranians in Syria as the armed forces of all three nations fight Al-Qaeda and militants of the so-called Islamic State, also serves as an advisor. He has worked in the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency for over 30 years and is currently a senior counsel at Beacon Global Strategies, an organization that appears to specialize in professional warmongering, alongside of U.S. former U.S. State Department, Department of Defense, and CIA employees. Corey Sheikh is described as having assisted for the policy for the White House, Department of Defense, and the State Department, as well as serving as senior advisor for John McCain and Sarah Palin during the 2008 bid for the White House. Forgive me, I'm sorry, this is hilarious. Yeah, I'm just sorry about that. Michael Rogers, a former U.S. representative from Michigan and a Republican, along with Admiral James Stavridis, who helped wage President Bush's war and also served as an advisor for the above-mentioned Beacon Global Strategies, helped round off the advisory board. It is safe to say that the majority of this exclusive anti-Russia propaganda organization, eagerly promoted by American liberals and consistent neoconservatives, many of these same liberals at one point rightfully rejected, opposed, and vehemently condemned as they sowed serial wars of aggression during the Bush administration. Similar list of neoconservatives and longtime warmongers fills out the Committee to Investigate Russia, CIR, who recently made headlines when they hired veterans actor Morgan Freeman to appeal to audience emotions rather than their intellect. CIR includes Max Boot, James Clapper, and Norman Ornstein, who occupies various seats and positions at corporate financer-funded think tanks ranging from the Council on Foreign Relations to the Center for New American Security to the American Enterprise Institute, all of which share sponsorship from big oil, big defense, big banks, and big industry. In other words, Wall Street. Ain't it great, my friends? All these people that's in there, the corrupt, the deceit, the self-centered, are all saying, if you have that mindset, you can climb to the top and be rich and respected in our realm. You can piss on the peasants, but they don't count. On the other pop-up anti-Russian fronts have similar boards of directors representing similar interests and are similarly and very ironically finding fertile ground among American liberals who at one point in recent history opposed the very sort of war propaganda now being sold versus Russia. Wall Street, not Moscow's control of the White House. The United States possesses over 800 military bases worldwide, with a military operating on a budget that eclipses the combined military budgets over the next 7 leading nations, including Russia and China. One of the top 10 Fortune 500 international corporations, 4 are American, none are Russian. While the Russian Federation protects its interests with a formidable nuclear conventional military, a respectable stake in the global economy sector and strong diplomatic ties with other alternative centers of power, it lags far behind in military and economic clout, ranked 12 by GDP behind nations like South Korea, Canada, Italy, and Japan, and obviously behind larger emerging nations including Brazil, India, and China. The Russian military budget estimated at around $70 billion when compared to the annual net sales of a single Wall Street defense contractor, like Lockheed Martin, for an example, at around $50 billion in 2016, helps further put the actual reach of Russia in a perspective versus interest upon Wall Street. In fact, U.S. policy think tanks like those chaired by above-mentioned neoconservatives are sponsored by some of the largest corporation financiers' interests in America and on Earth, who with their combined resources and influences eclipse even the most fantastic claims made regarding Russia. Not only do U.S. corporations and financial institutions possess an immense advantage in resources and influence in general, they also enjoy the benefit of proximity. Many operate offices or employ lobbying services located directly in Washington, D.C. Wall Street also possesses immense influence over the Western media, often controlling media platforms on both the left and the right of American politics, controlling narratives that safely divide Americans against one another, leave special interests on the Wall Street in a convenient and well-protected board of impunity. So when we get distracted, that's their advantage. So if we get chaotic, that's their opportunity. So remember, where there's chaos, there's opportunity, right? That's what Sun Tzu says. The administration of current U.S. President Donald Trump consists of representatives from these Wall Street corporations and financial institutions. Many of them represent the same interests who composed former U.S. President Barack Obama's administration and who have composed Hillary Clinton's administration as she prevailed in the 2016 election. These interests include large banking institutions, the defense industry, and big oil, while supporters of President Trump blame the deep state for his instability to make good on campaign promises, and the opponents of President Trump blamed Russians for his apparent disregard for America's best interest. It is clear that Wall Street is responsible for both, and it was during President Obama's administration before him, and for decades before him, and as Hillary won the election. Remember, so it's right there, it's saying the more things change, the more it stays the same. The more things altered, Wall Street is the same. Remember that, folks. This is how the military-industrial complex, big financial corporations, global bankster institutions, etc. They run the scam plays on. Okay, who is buying? The notion that Russia holds more influence over the White House than the magnitude of powerful, corrupt, multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations and financial institutions upon Wall Street is at face value absurd. These interests, however, see an opportunity to jettison responsibility for the most negative aspects of policy implemented under the Trump administration by implicating Russia. They are able to do this by exploiting anger and frustration following the 2016 presidential election, regardless of the fact that virtually all of Trump's decisions, including expanding wars in Syria, tensions with North Korea and Iran, as well as imposing crippling sanctions on Venezuela, were all policies pursued by President Obama and promoted eagerly by Hillary Clinton, both in her role as U.S. Secretary of State and on the campaign trail. Exactly, and he's right on that. Angry, frustrated Americans who might otherwise be tempted to trace the money and motivations underpinning the Trump administration's flawed policies to Wall Street are now being intentionally diverted with accusations of Russia interference. Instead of exposing and condemning corrupt corporations like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Exxon, and BP, or financial institutions like Goldman Sachs, Americans are looking for Russian influence that simply does not exist. Nearly a year after Trump stepped into office, no significant evidence has emerged implicating Russia or even providing a cursory explanation as to how Russia has managed to eclipse Wall Street influences over the White House. It's another unfortunate case of emotions and ignorance prevailing over suspicion and due diligence. Many are now generally concerned regarding Russian influence. Others are opportunistically joining this modern-day witch hunt for notoriety and attention, while others are simply paid lobbyists like those lining in the advisory boards of the Alliance for Secure Democracy and the Committee to Investigate Russia. It's called scapegoating, okay? It's been being used for thousands of years, my friends, millenniums, and they still want you to buy that. It's the fear factor. Blame the Russians this, blame the Russians that. It's like, hey, it's like when the Kremlin Empire of the Ottoman Empire, they want to go after kill all the Armenians. They blame the Armenians for it because they're doing pretty well. It's like blaming a lot of the Jews that happened in Germany. Okay, they want to blame the entire group, and that's wrong. Just to give you guys an example. And they still want you to believe this stuff. There's still people on Facebook still buy that crap. Please, give me a break. Start doing your homework and use your brain instead of being swindled on the idiot box or some stupid, weak, and pathetic news site. Come on. What Americans should be really doing. The White House is supposed to represent the American people. Instead, it represents Wall Street. The corporations that constitute Wall Street enjoy the wealth and influence they currently hold because Americans are easily diverted from recognizing and addressing this unwarranted concentration of power. While Americans fight themselves and phantom Russians, they continue paying their monthly paychecks into these corporate financial monopolies, enhancing Wall Street's control over a White House that's supposed to belong to the people. Should Americans put aside their witch hunt for Russians and recognize that true interest holding power over the White House, they may find common ground that transcends race, religion, even politics long enough to expose and address the disparity of wealth and influence in America that has existed and divided the American people long before President Trump took office. Emotional appeals to public featuring Hollywood actors, graphs, and articles laced with weasel words such as likely, apparently, allegedly, and possibly, and even outright disclaimers admitting nothing resembling evidence underpins accusations, should immediately provoke suspicion and investigation, not blind hysteria. The very same interests who sold lies regarding Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction to American conservatives to initiate a war of aggression that left a million Iraqis dead, along with thousands of U.S. troops, is now selling similar and equally baseless lies to America's liberals regarding Russia. Both conservatives and liberals find themselves the target of manipulation and exploitation by special interests, and who do not represent the best interests of either political group. And that alone, common ground exists. Those who oppose the policies presented by U.S. President Trump need not embrace them. Indeed, they should vehemently oppose them. However, they must identify the true special interests influencing these policies on Wall Street, rather than chasing phantoms. Those who claim they exist now will never be found or caught in the far-off Kremlin. I can understand Mr. Carlucci, right? Viewpoint on this, because I've been saying this for a very long time as well. And this is what the one world order wants. They want organized chaos. They want they create social engineering of fighting amongst each other and point their finger. Allah, look what happened in Berkeley. Look what happened at Charlottesville. Okay, just give you guys a couple of examples. And many others we can see. We can go on and on and on. But one thing we gotta look at too, my friends, is a lot of folks are still buying the hype on this ordeal. And that's why you folks like myself have to really look at things a lot broader than what it is. And it's a real shame. However, I do see an awakening as well. A spiritual awakening. And it's happening little by little. So everyone out there, even my brothers and sisters in the United States, who feel like you're alone, you're not. The like-minded ones out there, you're not in solitude. Of course, you're going to get laughed at. You're going to tell you you're an effing idiot or you're full of crap, don't know what you're talking about. Don't get angry about it. Be inspired. Have your merits. Use finesse. You want to plant the seeds. I can tell you that for a fact. September 11, 2001. I'm unofficially a 9/11 truther for the past 16 years. I declared a New World Order agenda on September 14, 2001. I know many of my regular listeners know I'm repeating, but so far as the folks who are here listening to me the first time. Now look what's happened. Okay? It's being debunked little by little on saying they attacked because of our freedoms. It's now backfiring on them. More people are learning about this. You gotta keep the plug, keep it going. And remember, don't let them deprive your freedom of speech. I'm talking about worldwide. And many other folks out here being censored. Even David Icke, like him or not. He's being censored as well. They canceled a couple of shows. I think they canceled shows in Toronto, Canada, Ontario, Canada one time. He made a video and he talked about it, about freedom of speech. They're trying to deprive, and it's dead wrong. So they want political correctness. They want to be dumb, stagnant, happy. They like to see you as a number, not a human being. They want to be as a zombie, a drone, a bellboy to them, to tyranny. I say the hell with them, because they're desperate. We're breaking out. They're more desperate. So, folks, always look at things a lot broader than what it is. Alright. Enough of that. I know I digressed. And check this out here. This is in reference to Mr. Moore, who ran for the Senate and won the primaries. It says here, does Moore win signal a return to conservatism by Republicans? This is by Bob Livingston from the Bob Livingston Alerts, BobLivingstonLetter.com. Really good. I always admired his work, so I can, and Brandon Smith and many others. This is a real good website, so please check it out, man. I enjoy the stuff here, and it says here, first of all, banish from your mind that a Republican Party leadership, aka the establishment, is or has ever been conservative. They are corporatist and statist. Another word for it is fascist. They are cronies in bed with big business, Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, Zionism, aka Israel Firstism. Same for the Democrat leadership, except for them, thrown in also Hollywood, labor unions, trial lawyers, along with big business and Wall Street. He's talking to a man who is a union member, so I can relate. I will continue on here. So when I speak about Republicans here, I'm talking about Republican voters and some of the Republican voting pundit class. The Republican Party elite once embraced conservatives into ranks as both voters and candidates, even if the elite had no interest in governing as conservatives. In doing so, they led astray great numbers of middle-class Americans, especially Christians, patriots, and other good folks. The only greatest of all culprit in this deception was George W. Bush and his compassionate conservatism, followed by his war on terror, which is a make-work scheme for the military-industrial complex, SOC for the banksters, preservation of the petrodollar, and the Middle East hegemony of Saudi Arabia and Israel. Note that in the federal government dominated by a Republican majority whether under the Bush or now Donald Trump, the federal Leviathan grows in power, coupled together with New World Order. Note that Republican appointed judges continue to rule in favor of the state and the progressive agenda in almost all cases. Cases in point: Bush nominated Supreme Court Justice John Roberts ruled in favor of Obamacare, and Reagan nominated Associate Justice Anthony Kennedy ruled in favor of gay marriage. And I'll be very clear on gay marriage. Always believe in natural born rights. Okay, just to give you a heads up. But licensing is commercial law. So to get a marriage license, you have to be approved by competent authority. Any questions? Look up Black's Law Dictionary and see marriage license. You'd be pretty surprised, my friends. Now we'll continue on here. The Republican elite have abandoned any pretext conservatism, choosing instead wars and big government, socialism, and open borders. Today, Republican elite, with some of the Republican voting in rank and file called Republicans, and name only rhinos, I call them paper tigers, are not conservative by any definition. They have, by and large, embraced neoconservatism. Neoconservatives are the proverbial liberals who have been mugged and are converts to pseudo-conservatism. Their true history is that the leading light of neoconservatism were Trotskyites, follower of the Menshevik communist philosophy of Lenin's early Soviet comrade Leon Trotsky. They fled the liberalism of the Democrat Party when they perceived it had become soft on the Soviet Union. They can be found of late via their Russia-phobic actions and statements, but they are the Fox conservatives of the Bush, both 1 and 2, Dick Cheney, Karl Rove, John Bolton, Paul Wolford, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, William Kristol, Charles Krauthammer, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, Rush Limbaugh wing of the Republican Party. They are pro-war Zionists, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission adherents who advocated using both soft and hard power to establish U.S. hegemony over the world and primarily on behalf of Israel and Saudi Arabia and the New World Order, and to preserve the petrodollar and spread democracy, which is not freedom in any sense. They defend the eternal keeping of our soldiers, children in South Korea, Germany, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and wherever a radical Muslim may be found. They disparage those who speak of the District of Columbia as if it were sewer. It is, and they criticize and ostracize those who want to eliminate unconstitutional truths of government and believe that God is the source of our rights and moral laws, as the founders did. Judge Roy Moore just secured the Republican nomination for senator from Alabama. He is a true conservative who believes in God and the Constitution. That's why Mitch McConnell's Senate Leadership PAC and Karl Rove's America Crossroads PAC, along with other Fox conservative organizations, just up $13 million plus to try to beat Moore and other more traditional conservatives running for Jeff Sessions' Senate seat. The propaganda war against Moore has reached a fever pitch in the media among the Republican establishment. Rove penned in an article for the Wall Street Journal in which he calls Moore's election a disastrous day by the GOP. But the GOP roving the establishment, so we can hope. Being a bend over Bob is a result of blowback. Thank you, Mr. Rove. The CIA mouthpiece, the Washington Post, had 2 columns on Moore's victory over the establishment. One in which it claimed the country lost when Moore won. Another claimed his victory is bad for Alabama and worse for the GOP. MSNBC's Chuck Todd claimed Moore doesn't appear to believe in the Constitution because Moore believes our rights come from God. How obscene. Of course, Chuck Todd, he sucks anyway, you know? Each of these stories tell the history of Moore being ousted from the Alabama Supreme Court, 2 times stating falsely that he was removed for violating the Constitution. Moore was ousted for the first time in 2003 as he refused an order from a federal judge to remove a 10 Commandments monument from the state judicial building. This is not why he was removed, but it was a pretext for his removal, as a testament from his hearing before an unelected, unaccountable panel of lawyers called the Alabama Court of Judiciary shows. He was prosecuted in that hearing by the Alabama Attorney General Bill Pryor, an establishment-favored Republican under the control of the Rove-Bush regime. So, who was Alabama Attorney General Bill Pryor? A bellboy! Shoeshine boy, right? Yeah! And this was unaccountable body that removed Moore because he refused to agree to cease honoring God. And for this Pryor was rewarded a lifetime appointment from Bush to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. He has been listed as a potential Trump Supreme Court nominee. The same unaccountable body essentially removed Moore a second time in 2016 by suspending him without pay after he was instructed with Alabama probate judges to prohibit same-sex couples from receiving marriage license after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gay marriage in Obergefell. Alabamians have voted overwhelmingly for a state constitution amendment prohibiting gay marriage, and Moore was awaiting clarification from the Supreme Court on whether Alabama's amendment was standing. What you can say about this, my friend? They're trying to pull a incorporate doctrine, which Mike Meharry talked about the 10th Amendment Center, and I did just look that up. I have it in my past episodes too. I think it's like a week ago, just to be fair. And it says here, so Moore was not removed for violating the Constitution, as establishment mouthpiece would have you believe. Moore has been a devout defender of the Constitution and of God. Moore believes, as Patrick Buchanan writes, that man-made law must conform to the laws of nature and nature of God, as written in Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. If the law contradicts God's law, it is invalid. In some cases, civil disobedience, deliberate violation, and of such a law may be moral duty of a Christian. So Moore believes God's law is even above the Constitution, at least interpreted by recent Supreme Court. Homosexuality an abomination in the Old Testament and New Testament. Moore sees an inherent evil in the High Court. In Albertville versus Hodges, it's given the constitutional right to same-sex marriage. Moore, back on the Alabama court, divided decision, was suspended again and resigned. Okay, so he was critical of that. I'm not gonna crucify, but that's his views based on his faith. But the whole thing is, like I said before, about same-sex marriage, licensing is commercial law. But I'll continue on here. Postmodern America may see the judge as a refugee from the Neolithic period. Yes, his convictions.
So Craig, what day you want to Craig is?
All right, a little distraction there, but it's okay. It's business, coffee shop, go figure. His convictions and how he has stood up by them are going to attract folks beyond Alabama. And the judge's views on God, man, and law are not without distinguished fraternity. In his letter from Birmingham jail, Dr. King wrote, there are two types of laws. There are just laws and there are unjust laws. I will agree with St. Augustine that the unjust law is not a law at all. Many Christians believe that what the Supreme Court did in Roe versus Wade declared unborn child's right to life contingent upon whether its modern wishes to end it violates God's law, thou shalt not kill. Throughout our history, people acting upon such beliefs have defied laws and are today celebrate for it. Abolitionists, in violation of the law they believe immoral, set up the Underground Railroad to help slaves escape to freedom. King believed that laws imposing racial segregation violate the American creed, that all men are created equal, and acted on that belief. Thomas More is considered by Catholics to be a saint and a moral hero for defying Henry VIII's demand, among others, that he endorsed a lie and that the king's marriage to Anne Boleyn was not adultery. More's victory over the establishment has restored moral courage to founding conservatives. Conservative candidates are coming out of the woodwork, emboldened to state their convictions and challenge the establishment. Even some conservative pundits who have been timid in the face of the elites are growing backbones and backing Moore, and along with him, principles of morality and constitution. Buchanan writes, Christianity and the moral truth has taught for 2,000 years have been deposed from the preeminent position that held after World War II are now rejected as a source of law. They have been placed by the tenets of a secular humanism, and that is a prevailing orthodoxy of our new culture, social and intellectual elite. If elected, Judge Moore, one imagines, will not be rendering respectfully unto the new Caesar. Maybe Moore can help lead the Republican Party of its worldly, godless state of any anti-constitutional universalism, globalism, and immorality. So this is really interesting, regardless of what you believe about Judge Moore or not. But one thing I gotta give him credit for, at least he had the courage to stand to speak his mind, tick off a lot of people, and they tried to crucify him and got vindicated on round one, the primary. That's a big achievement, my friend. It proves one thing. You can spend a lot of money on one candidate. Does not guarantee anything. $13 million plus to beat Judge Moore. And the people in Alabama sent a message. The Republican voters. And don't get like this, I'm not a big fan of political parties, but that is a powerful message. We can have disagreements with Judge Moore, Roy Moore. However, if we have things in common, stick with him on those areas. If you just go after him for every single thing, then it'd be pretty ludicrous. And even myself, when there's some people, some of these political hacks, they do something right, I thank them. Doesn't mean I'm gonna be their buddies, but you gotta focus on the bigger picture. The supreme law of the land. That's the question, not the question, but that's the motive, the purpose. So keep it real, Judge Roy Moore. Don't get caught in the hype. So this is why I hear what the mainstream news has to say, and I go to other alternative sites that I can say has plenty of merit. You always got to look at the world, my friends, in a bigger, broader context. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a little break. Be right back. Alright, so the next one here, my friends, it came from TeknoAXE News and Trends.com to be exact. And I like this MasterCard Advisor, written by Tipping Point, the global journey from cash to cashless. It's a real slow thing here, right? And as it reads here, the Cashless Society is a global initiative of technocrats, globalist bankers who use governments with statements like governments can speed the journey. In fact, technocrats despise government except for how they can use them to manipulate the citizens to buy into their globalist pipe dream. Today, around 85% of all retail payment transactions are done with cash, which equates to 60% of retail transaction value. Even though much of the world's population has access to many different options for making payments other than cash, cash still persists. Cash takes time to get it, is riskier to carry, and by most estimates, cash costs society as much as 1.5% of the GDP. Electronic payments, on the other hand, have been proven to boost economic growth. While advancing financial inclusion, it's for these reasons that countries around the world are working to make their payment systems less dependent on cash. The Cashless Journey study was developed to track nations' progress towards more cashless economies. It offers insight into some nations that have made the journey from cash to cashless, and how on other nations can constitute their journeys. The study helps to shape the conversation about the consumer payment patterns across countries around the globe. The information it provides was designed to assess the impact of different factors such as regulatory measures from financial inclusion initiatives on changes to these patterns. The study explores the evolution of consumer payment patterns in 33 countries from 5 regions, representing more than 85% of global GDP, taking into account both developed and developing nations using single methodology. A focus of the value of consumer payments. Government, banks, payment networks all look at cash usage and broader payment habits through different lenses. MasterCard looks at payments through different lenses depending on the audience, product, or region. The Cashless Journey study chose a consistent global methodology focusing on consumer payments or payments initiated by individuals. Consumer payments for goods and services account for about 11% of the value of payments around the globe, more than 9% of value of payments or number of transactions. The study focuses on the value of the consumer payments, 63 trillion in total spend, rather than the value of payments, total transactions. As estimate payments, value more readily available and have also been found to be more representative of broader trends in payments preference. Finally, it should be noted that this study looks at all consumer payments, including those that happen beyond retail point of sale. This is an important consideration to underscore, by including non-retail categories like housing, bill payments. The total figure for consumer payments is far larger than the value of retail points of sale payments. So while cash accounts for 60% of the value of total retail payments in shops or online, when these other large consumer payments, e.g. wire transfer to buy a car, direct debit to pay a mortgage, are included, the value payments are represented by cash falls to 34%. The Cashless Journey study measures nations' progress towards more modern, efficient payment process by looking at the current share of cash versus non-cash payments for consumers. How this share has shifted in the past 5 years. Predictory and whether conditions exist for cash payments moves to electronic readiness. The study measures 3 indicators of progress. Share the percentage of value all consumer payments that are presently done by means of other than cash. 2, trajectory, a measure shift in cash share of consumer payments value between 2006 and 2011. 3, readiness, a measure of the future potential for conversion of cash payments to electronic payments based on macroeconomic preconditions observed in the highly cash markets. So, and this is funny because they want you get a full report right here. So I'm going to check that out. It's on the PDF format, believe it or not. Cashless Journey white paper. Let's see what happens here. Just hang tight. But it's interesting because when you look at all this, it can fight for hurt liberty. So MasterCard Cash Advisors. So it does has everything down here about covering cash societies, country study, the United States, and other parts of the world. There are being studied on this. So it gives you a whole rundown of consumer payments. So it's very interesting. So you can really look at this, trajectory readiness, and it goes all the way down how the score was calculated. So definitely you hit that PDF format, and it says here about nearly cashless, and interesting, 93% in Belgium, 92% in France, and 90% in Canada, 89% UK and Sweden. So the United States is 80%. So you gotta be very observant, my friends. One thing I always tell folks is you never leave your security eggs. Never leave your eggs in one basket. Even when it comes to credit cards, I always recommend this, my friends. Pay everything in full. Why pay interest? They'll hate you more. You really want to use the enemy's tools and get them more it hurts? Do that. You know why? I learned that from my late father on how to use the enemy's tools. So there's a PDF format, it's like 15 pages long. I'm not going to go through here, but the statistics are very leery. I can say that in good faith. Everything has its pros and cons, but please, I boldly recommend to my fellow brothers around the world on this matter, don't leave everything in one area. So you still use cash, invest in commodities like gold and silver. Crypto, yeah, it has its pros and cons too, don't get me wrong. However, if you're going to invest in that, that's your suggestion, but I recommend, like I said, don't put it in one area. Keep everything in a balance, and trust me, you'll be better off. It'll hurt some areas, but not 100%. So that's the main issue when I see these things, even with these instant, instant deposits you go on your cell, you can use on your cell phone. I have one of those, so you gotta, like I said, it's very, concerning. But to all my friends out there, keep everything in a balance on a financial basis, and you know what? You won't regret it. So definitely, folks, you can read that. It's very intriguing, And so we can go on and on. So got one more thing here before I wrap this up. And actually it came from the Rutherford Institute. Came out 5 days ago, and I wish I would have known about this earlier if I'd have read it. But it says here is a commentary by John W. Whitehead, who is the president of this organization, Rutherford Institute. Patriots and protesters are taking knee for the Constitution. As it reads here, it seems like in the past 15 years, the sole idea of patriotism has changed some. More polarized, more tied to political and ideological views. I never seen patriotism or the flag connected to either. I see the flag more as a symbol of a nation that allows the freedom to express those ideas. That alone deserves my respect. Nancy Moore, U.S. Marine. And this is what John White has to say, who actually served in the military. By all means, let's talk about patriotism and President Trump's call for respect for our country, flag, and national anthem. At the time when the American flag adorns everything from men's boxers and women's bikinis to beer koozies, bandanas, and advertising billboards with a little outcry from the American public, and the national anthem sung by Pepper the Parrot during the Puppy Bowl, this conveniently timed outrage over disrespect for the country's patriotic symbol rings somewhat hollow, detracts from more serious conversations that should be taking place about the critical policy matters of state, and further divides the nation and ensures that we the people will not present a unified front to oppose the police state. First off, let's tackle this issue of respect or lack thereof for patriotic symbols. As the U.S. Supreme Court has made clear, Americans have a right to abstain from patriotic demonstrations. West Virginia Board of Education versus Burnett, 1943, and or actively protest that demonstration, for example, by raising one's fist during their pledges of allegiance. Holloman ex Will Holloman versus Harlan, 2004. These First Amendment protections also extend to military uniforms worn to criticize the military and military freedom of protest. Snyder versus Phelps, 2011. Likewise, Americans have a right to display, alter, or destroy the U.S. flag as an act of symbolic protest or speech. And it's interesting, it has a key point. Some people may not like that. However, they got, like they say, they may get angry when people burn the flag. But how about the politicians, the corrupt parasites of that bunch that they are, rather local, state, or federal, have been desecrating the flag? But that's okay, right? And a lot of them still vote for these clowns. But I will continue on here. In fact, Street versus New York, 1969, the Supreme Court held that the government may not punish a person of uttering words critical of the flag, writing that the Constitution guarantees freedom to be intellectually diverse or even contrary, and the right to differ as to things that touch the heart of the existing order encompasses the freedom to express publicly one's opinion about our flag, including those opinions which are defiant or contemptuous. The case arose after Sidney Street hearing about an attempted murder of civil rights leader James Meredith in Mississippi, burned a 48-star American flag on a New York City street corner to protest what he saw as government's failure to protect Meredith. Upon being questioned about the flag, Street responded, "Yes, that's my flag. I burned it. If they let that happen to Meredith, we don't need an American flag." In Spence versus Washington, 1974, the court ruled that the right to display the American flag with any marks or design upon its protected act of expression. The case involved a college student who had placed a peace symbol on 3x5 American flag using removable black tape and displayed it upside down from his apartment window. Finally, in Texas versus Johnson, 1989, the court held that flag burning was protected speech under the First Amendment. Sorry about that. First Amendment. The case arose from a demonstration near the site of the Republican National Convention in Dallas during which protesters marched through the streets, chanted political slogans, staged die-ins in front of several corporate offices, and dramatized the consequence of nuclear war and burned the American flag as a means of political protest. In other words, if freedom means anything, it means those exercising their right to protest, showing the greatest respect for the principles on which this nation was founded, the right of free speech and the right to dissent. Clearly, the First Amendment to the Constitution assures Americans of the right to speak freely, assemble freely, and protest, petition the government for redress of grievances. Whatever those First Amendment activities take place in a courtroom or a classroom, on a football field or in front of the U.S. Supreme Court is not the issue. What matters is that the Americans have a right, according to the spirit, if not always, letter of the law, to voice their concerns without being penalized. Frankly, the First Amendment does more than give us a right to criticize our country. It makes it a civic duty. Second, let's not confuse patriotism, love for devotion to one's country, with blind obedience to the government's dictates. This is the first step towards creating an authoritarian regime. One can be patriotic and love one country, but at the same time disagreeing with the government and protesting government misconduct. As journalist Barbara Ehrenreich recognizes, dissent, rebellion, all-around hell-raising remains one true duty of patriots. Indeed, I would venture to say that you're not speaking out or taking a stand against government wrongdoing if you're marching in lockstep with anything the government and its agents dole out, and you are patronizing partisan politics over the principles enshrined in the Constitution, then you're not a true patriot. Something to think about. It's a man who served in the military as well, so the real patriots care enough to take a stand, speak out, protest, and challenge the government. Rather, it steps out of line. There is nothing patriotic about the lengths to which Americans have allowed the government to go in its efforts to dismantle our constitutional republic and shift the country into a police state. It is not anti-American to be anti-war or anti-police misconduct or anti-racial discrimination, but it's anti-American to be anti-freedom. I have come to recognize what many prefer as polarization. Certainly, what the government refer as extremism is actually Americans challenging the status quo, especially so-called government elite. Martin Luther King Jr. put it best when, after being accused of extremism, responded. The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will you be? How many times over the years I have been criticized for being anti-American, anti-patriotic, reprimanded for being too negative in my views of government, admonished to have faith in our own leaders, ordered to refrain from criticizing our president because the president still lives, the Americans still live in the best country in the world. It is what patriotism in our loving country. One moment here. What is really patriotism or loving your country in the world? Is that really what patriotism or loving your country is all about? If so, then the great freedom fighters of history would be considered unpatriotic. Absolutely. Something really to look at too, my friends. I'm just trying to do something here. One moment. You know, I've just been interrupted. Oh, no, it's not that. Sorry about that. No. So, very interesting here. Too many Americans seem to keep faith in the government, and a positive attitude are enough to get you through the day. That you're not a good citizen if you criticize the government, and not being a good citizen means doing one thing: voting. Ooh. Problem we face today, however, is that America requires more than voters to incline lip service to a false sense of patriotism. It requires doers, a well-informed, very active group of doers. If we are to have any chance of holding the government accountable and maintaining our freedoms. After all, it was not idle rhetoric that prompted the framers of the Constitution to begin with the words, "We the people." In the words of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Earl Warren, there is an implicit assumption throughout the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that we, the people, we will preserve our democratic rights by acting responsibly in our enjoyment of them. The ultimate responsibility for maintaining our freedoms rests with the people. Third, we need to stop acting as if showing respect for the country, flag, and national anthem is more important than the freedom they represent. Listen, I served in the Army. I lived through the Civil Rights era. I came of age during the 60s when activists took the streets to protest war and economic and racial injustice. As a constitutional lawyer, I defend people daily whose civil liberties are being violated, including high school students prohibited from wearing an American flag t-shirt to school, allegedly out of fear that it might be disrupted. Yeah, all these little sensitive people, if you get offended and try to take away someone's free speech, you are an enemy. You are treasonous. You are downright blasphemous. And I will continue on here. I understand the price that must be paid for freedom. None of the people I served with or marched or represented put our lives or our liberties on the line for a place of the Star-Spangled Cloth or a few bars of music. We took our stands and made our sacrifices because we believe we are fine to maintain our freedoms and bring about justice for all Americans. As such, responsible citizenship being outraged at the loss of others' freedoms, even when our own are not directly threatened. Framers in the Constitution knew very well that whether and wherever democratic governments had failed, it was because had abdicated their responsibility as guardians of freedom. They also knew that wherever in history the people denied this responsibility, an authoritarian regime arose which eventually denied the people the rights to govern themselves. And government falls into two classifications: those with democratic form and those that are authoritarian, ruled by any individual or some oligarch elite. Acting responsibly, however, means that there are certain responsibilities and duties without which our rights would become meaningless. Duties of citizenship extend beyond the act of voting, which is the only step in acting responsibly. Citizens must be willing to stand and fight to protect their freedom. And if need be, it will entail criticizing the government. This is true patriotism in action. What this means that we can still be patriotic and love our country while disagreeing with the government or going to court to fight for freedom. Responsible citizens mean being outraged at the loss of others' freedoms, even when our own are not directly threatened. It also means remembering that the prime function of any free government is to protect the weak against the strong. Love our country will sometimes entail carrying a picket sign or going to jail or taking a knee, if necessary, to preserve liberty and challenge injustice. And will it mean speaking up for those with whom we might disagree? Tolerance for dissent, we must remember, is a vital characteristic of the citizens of a democratic society. As Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, if there is principle of the Constitution that more imperatively calls for the attachment than any other, it is the principle of thought, not free thought for those who agree with us, but freedom for the thought that we hate. Loving our country does not mean being satisfied with the status quo or the way government is being administered. Government invariably, possibly, inviolably oversteps its authority. As human beings are not perfect, governments because they are constructs of human beings which are necessarily imperfect as well. Love of country, it must be emphasized, is always strengthened by both a knowledge of history and of the Constitution, and when we need be acting on that knowledge. If we have no appreciation in the past, Justice Warren recognized we can have little understanding of the present or the vision of the future. For the future, the problems facing our generation are numerous and are becoming incredibly complex. Technology, which was developed by at rapid pace offers those in power more invasive and awesome possibilities than ever before. Never in American history has there been more pressing need to maintain the barriers in the Constitution erected by our founders to check governmental power and abuse. As I make clear in my book, Battlefield America, the War on the American People, we're at a very crucial crossroads with American history. We have to be well informed not only about current events, but well versed in the basics of our rights and duties as citizens. If not, in perceived times of crisis, we may find ourselves in the clutches of a governmental system that is alien to everything for which America stands. Make no mistake about it, and the mass of citizens will continue to be misinformed, and as astute political leaders have recognized in the past, they can be easily led. Therein is the menace to our freedom. Stop falling for the distractions. Stop allowing yourself to be fooled by propaganda and partisan politics. Stop acting if it's the only thing without getting outraged is about whether a bunch of football players stand or kneel for the national anthem. Stop being an armchair patriots and start acting like foot soldiers for the Constitution. Remember, it's all a game, a ruse, a dance intended to keep you in line, marching to the government's tune instead of freedom calls. In the age of spin doctors and manipulation, those who question the motives of government provide a necessary counterpoint to those who blindly follow what politicians choose to lead. Past regimes understood well how to manipulate and maneuver. As Hermann Göring, one of Hitler's top military leaders, remarked during the Nuremberg trial, it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's democracy or a fascist dictatorship, or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the biddings of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists, the lack of patriotism, and exposing the country to danger. It works in the same in any country. Well, Göring was right on that. And you got, like I said, my friends, you have to always examine everything in a bigger picture. And this is why, like I told everyone from around the world and even in my own community, freedom is essential. You don't trust the government as part of our heritage. Thomas Paine once made a quote, "The duty of a true patriot is to protect his country from its government." Okay? One more time. The duty of a true patriot is to protect his country from its government. You gonna call him a crackpot? They're probably calling him Nazi today, for all these illiterates out there. But all those folks that are in that one-dimensional mindset has the opportunity to redeem themselves. Don't follow the herd. Never be a herd conformist. Walking antimatter is for the fool, the traitors, and the bell folks. You want to lead that way? It will backfire you, blow back in your face when least expected. A lot more people will stand up for what's right. I guarantee you that. Well, always give him credit, John Whitehead, from the Rutherford Institute. If you're going to be a member, please do so. I got to be doing that real soon. And I'm not going to say it, but when the time's right, bam, I'm going to get involved. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout the social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with the Quorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedom's Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, Internet.club, Patreon.com/LoveLove3. If you want to be a patron, a donor, a great supporter, that would be awesome. In addition, you can get me at Gab, gab.ai, which is like a freedom version of Twitter. That's what they say. So check it out. You won't regret it, all right? Okay, in addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com or the encrypted ones, LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. Please don't be shy. And don't use these stupid derogatory comments. You know, one guy said that to me. I just get inspired. Just give me some information. We're here to think, see things a lot broader, okay? Alright, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demonic resistance help the soul can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourself. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.